What if I told you that behind the most powerful thrones in history, there were hidden rooms where kings and queens did things no law would allow? Rooms where whispers turned to screams and where power went unpunished. These rooms were not in any royal records. No paintings, no poems, just shadows behind velvet curtains. But their secrets shaped empires and destroyed lives. And the truth? It was far worse than anyone imagined. Let us go back to 15th century Europe, a time of big castles, dim torchlight, and kings who had full control over their people. The kings and queens lived in beauty and power. Their palaces smelled of burning firewood and sweet incense. Their clothes were soft velvet lined with gold. But behind the throne, a place where people bowed and laws were made, there was something hidden. A secret door was built into the wall. From the outside, it looked like part of the decoration, but behind it was a room no one was supposed to see. In one kingdom, believed to be France, only the king and his top advisor knew it was there. The room was cold, made of thick stone. It was soundproof. Even if someone screamed inside, no one outside would hear them. Some called it the king's study, some called it the confession box. But the people who went inside called it a nightmare. Now imagine this. A young prince, only 16 years old, speaks during a royal banquet. He asks why taxes are rising when the people are starving. The room goes quiet. The king's face turns red. He says nothing. Later that night, guards take the prince away. They lead him behind the throne into the hidden room. There is no bed, no desk, just one chair, and a single candle. He is made to stand for hours. The air is damp and heavy. His nose fills with the smell of melting wax and wet stone. The king says nothing. He only stares. The silence is worse than shouting. When the prince leaves the room, his legs are shaking. He never speaks out again. People say his voice never returned. Another case tells of a noblewoman. She refused to marry the king. That was her only crime. She was taken into the room in silence. No one knows what happened inside. But when she came out, her finger wore the king's ring, and she had signed away her family land. What happened to her freedom? To her dignity? All gone behind one stone wall. Servants who walked too close to the throne said they sometimes heard crying or silence that felt heavy. One whispered, "If you hear sounds behind the throne, keep walking. Do not look back." This secret room was not just used to punish people. It was used to control them. Lovers were blackmailed. Priests were forced to lie. War plans were made in that dark space. No court, no witnesses. Just quiet deals, cold wine, and shaky hands. One old advisor, who wrote in a secret diary, said, "The kingdom is not ruled from the throne, it is ruled from what sits behind it." These secret rooms were not accidents. They were built for a reason, to let the royal family do whatever they wanted, without question. And what is worse, these rooms were copied. Other kings and queens started building their own. In England, in Spain, in Russia. Hidden rooms behind power became the royal trend. Then came Alina, a 17-year-old servant girl who changed everything. One morning, while cleaning behind the throne, she noticed a stone tile was loose. Out of curiosity, she pressed it. The wall opened. She stepped into the secret room. She saw something horrible. Shackles on the floor like the kind used in dungeons. An old iron mirror covered in dust. And worst of all, a leather-bound journal. She opened the journal and gasped. Inside were the names of many people from the castle. Each name had a symbol beside it, some red, some crossed out. These were people who had vanished from court in the past 5 years. She turned the pages in shock until she saw something that made her drop the book, her own name. She ran, out of the room, through the halls, out into the forest. But the king's guards caught her near a river. She never returned. Her body was never found. But her story spread like wildfire. Some said a stable boy found her scarf by the water. A maid claimed she saw the journal burning in the fireplace days later. Soon after, the throne room was renovated. New walls, new drapes. But the door behind the throne? It stayed. And when the king died years later, his son ordered the wall to be removed. Behind it? Just plain stone. Nothing. Or so they said. But that night, workers reported that the wall was rebuilt in secret. Why? What were they still trying to hide? Because royal secrets do not die. They just move further into shadow. So what does this all mean? What does this tell us about power, about kings, and about truth? It tells us that history is not always honest. The stories we read in books about brave kings and kind queens leave out the rooms built for silence. These rooms were made not for ruling but for controlling. And the people who suffered inside them? Most had no names, no graves, and no justice. But if we tell their stories, if we remember Alina, the young prince, the noblewoman, we keep those dark secrets from returning. We remind ourselves that power should always be watched and that silence behind the throne often means more than the speeches in front of it. What if you were in that palace and found the door behind the throne? Would you dare open it? Would you survive what was inside? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more stories that history tried to erase, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because sometimes the darkest truths are not buried. They are hidden in plain sight.